Let's bring things closer back to home. Here in Ontario, high school students will be introduced to the province's first financial literacy program this week. The mandatory course comes after the government identified a need to improve the financial skill set of the younger generation, aims to prepare them for the future. That would be adulthood, wouldn't it? Joining me now is Gary Rabbior. He's president of the Canadian Foundation for Economic Education. Good to see you, Gary.
Pleasure to be here.
I was telling you the commercial break before we started, I love this topic because not only is it important, but I've got a kid in grade 9 and a kid in grade 11, and I want them to know this stuff. So clearly, you saw a need that needed to be fulfilled.
It is, and I've known it for years. I mean, having worked in this field for so long, as I shared with you, every person I've ever told them about what we do for a living and trying to get financial education into the schools, they always say, I wish I'd had that. I don't think there's a parent probably watching your program today that isn't delighted to hear that the schools are going to be doing more to prepare their kids for financial education. We also surveyed over 6,000 young people just about a year and a half ago, and they overwhelmingly indicated that they want to learn about money, and they want to learn about money at home and at school. We gave them the option of apps and games and things like that, but they're really focused on trusted sources. They want help on the home front and in schools, and delighted that Ontario's taken this step forward. It's not a complete whole program on financial education, but it's a good start.
So how do you, and tailoring this for teenagers, keep their attention? Because I know sometimes my boys will say, I found school boring today. So how do you draw them in and make sure that they're absorbing this information so that later in life they can say, oh, I'm not going to get in that trap?
Well, I think there's two aspects. One, young people, even at a fairly young age, are very involved in money and money decisions right now. So they actually, we think maybe they aren't that involved in it, but in many cases they are making decisions and they're saving for things or they're spending on things they want. But at the same time, we know that if you don't have an engaged learner, you don't have a learner at all. And if you don't make it positive for them, if you don't get them actively involved, and I think the key thing that we focus on is how do you get kids participating so they have the experiential side of it. And we have a program called Talk With Our Kids About Money, which gets young people involved in that. They do projects where they have to pick a money topic, do research, and do a presentation on what they learned. They take on responsibility for their learning. And then we have another program called Money and Youth, which is getting young people to actually involved in a whole host of activities, from budgeting exercises to looking pathways for your future. And so the key thing, I think, is not just to throw information at kids, but to reach out to kids and get them involved in the programs that we're involved in. And our thanks to Scotiabank.
You have your materials there, right there. So there's a thinner volume. Is that for the kids?
This is a brochure.
The thicker one?
This is actually the one where the young kids get involved in doing their own projects and whatever, and create displays and present what they've learned. And we had over 8,000 schools participate in this program last year, and somewhere in the neighborhood of 600,000 kids. And then this is our most successful publication, and it fits the new curriculum perfectly. It's called Money and Youth. Investors Group, IG Management, is our partner on that one. We've had over 500,000 free copies distributed to schools across Canada. And I should mention Scotiabank's our partner in this. That's all free for the schools too. And so we're a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, so there's no commercial aspect to it, just support for teachers, because teachers haven't been trained in this area, and we've got to get out and help them with professional development and resources to help them do the job that they're being asked to do now.
Now, of course, when we talk about pure mathematics in high school, it can get pretty complicated as you get into the higher grades. And I was surprised. I didn't start in financial journalism. I spent the first bulk of my journalism career in pure news, and you avoided the business department because you didn't want to do math. And I was surprised once I finally got into financial journalism, the math is fairly simple. There's a few concepts to understand, like compound interest, but it's not parabolas. It's not that kind of stuff. So is that the kind of thing, too, where people might shy away thinking this is just more math, but it's really a few simple concepts here?
It's a good point, because we work with all the provinces across Canada and because they're all interested in putting more financial education into the curriculum. We're actually trying to steer it away from math, because most of financial education isn't about numbers calculation and picking the right credit card. It's helping young people to develop the skills to make good decisions, to understand the influencers that are going to try and convince them to do things that maybe aren't in their own best interest. How you set limits to stay in control, not have other people set your limits, but you decide what is your comfort level of debt. How to understand that every decision you make with your money, you're trading off something else you could have had either today or in the future. So there's a whole set of understanding, skills, and abilities outside of the financial side of it that are really the essence of financial education, because we're really wanting young people to develop behaviors, attitudes, and whatever that will build a successful financial life for them. calculations and often are done for them automatically and whatever. It's the small part of financial education. It's really getting to the kid and imparting those kind of skills that at the early stages you could develop, and it's a lot easier to do behavior development than behavior modification. And if we don't get to them early, then we have to undo some of the things that maybe they're dealing with later on. But so many adults, do we know, suffer from financial stress and anxiety, and our concern is to try and make young people not get into those kind of situations. We've got remedial work to do with adults, but we've got preventative work to do with young people, so hopefully they can build different lives.
Interesting stuff. Thanks for joining us, Gary.
Thank you. A pleasure.
Gary Rabbior is the president of the Canadian Foundation for Economic Education.